بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى في كتاب رياض الصالحين في باب وجوب أمر أهله وأولاده المميزين وسائر من في رعيته بطاعة الله تعالى ونهيهم عن المخالفة وتأديبهم ومنعهم من ارتكاب منهي عنه. Abu Zakaria Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi says in his book Riyadh al-Salihin, in the chapter of the obligation to enjoin obedience to Allah and one's family members, young and old, and all one's subordinates, and to forbid disobedience. عن عمرو بن شعيب عن أبيه عن جده رضي الله عنهم قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مروا أولادكم بالصلاة وهم أبناء سبع سنين واضربوهم عليها وهم أبناء 10 وفرقوا بينهم في المضاجع. Amr ibn Shu'ayb reported on his father's authority that his grandfather, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Command your children to perform the prayer when they are 7 years old, and beat them for not offering it when they are 10, and do not let them, boys and girls, sleep together." So the Prophet ﷺ here in this hadith, and there's another hadith here on Sabra ibn Ma'bad al-Juhani radiyallahu anhu, قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم علموا الصبي الصلاة ل7 سنين واضربوه عليها ابن 10 سنين ولفظ أبي داود مروا الصبي بالصلاة إذا بلغ 7 سنين. Sabra ibn Ma'bad al-Juhani radiyallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Teach a boy prayer when he attains the age of 7, and punish him if he does not offer it at 10. And the narration by Abu Dawood says, "Order a boy to perform the prayer when he is 7 years old." And this is on the authority of Abu Dawood as well, and Tirmidhi on the section of prayer. So this hadith is very important because it's a milestone in how we raise our children upon the prayer. As we took the first ayah in this chapter, is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. And this shows the importance of ordering your people to pray that are in your care, and to have perseverance. And we said perseverance is patience over a long period of time, meaning that this is a lifelong process, meaning that it is not going to be something that is easy, but it is something that the individual should take into high importance, particularly the child themselves, but the father and the mother, or those who are in the authority of the children. Now the Prophet ﷺ gets a little more specific here. We saw the ahadith and the ayah was more of a generality from the ahadith that we've taken before, when the Prophet ﷺ talks about, kullukum ra'in, all of you are caretakers, and you will be asked about those who are in your care. But then the Prophet ﷺ gives guidelines. Even as we took yesterday, he was talking about how one should eat. We talked about the 3 things when one should eat. Here the Prophet ﷺ is talking about the prayer of the children. So the first thing he says is, command your children to perform prayer when they are 7 years old. What's very important here is that the Prophet ﷺ gives a number. And in the Sharia and the Deen of Islam, when there are numbers, it's very important to understand that there is no room for what? There's no room for what? Huh? Wiggle? No wiggle room, okay, yeah. Interpretation. There's no room for interpretation. So here he says 7 years old, so we know that 7 years old is a standard. No, you're not 7 yet. Inshallah, you will be 7 soon. Yes, the Qibla is that way. He's ready. See, he already knows what we're talking about. MashaAllah, he's ready. Yeah, he said, yeah. Right? Huh? Less than 7. Like in Jahiz, yani, yasta'id, alhamdulillah. Now, so he says here, 7 years old. So order your children to pray when they are 7. Now, question, Jama'ah. Is it obligatory upon them to pray when they are 7? When your child, and this is, every one of us will have reached or will reach 7 years old. Right? Right? Rock, paper, scissors, crew? Yeah. Right? So, is it obligatory for them to pray when what do I mean by obligatory? What does that even mean? When I say obligatory? No. بالانجليزيه يعني عندنا اولاد. Yeah. Okay, you have to do something. What does that mean, you have to do something? What does that mean for the guys, for the young kids that are below the age of 7, or those that are in the age of 7 that don't understand what compulsory means? Very important. What does that mean? Thank you. Yes, thank you. It's a sin if you don't do it. Now, if they're 7 years, now let's take it back to my original question. If they're 7 years old, not yet. If they're 7 years old and they don't offer the prayer, is it a sin if they don't do it? Meaning, is it obligatory? Meaning, is it compulsory? No. No? But the Prophet ﷺ told who here? Who's he talking to?
For the father, or the responsible one.
Exactly. The care, exactly. So would we say it's obligatory on who then? Did y'all get that? So it's a responsibility of the parents to order the children to what? At the age of ish? This can be an understanding. No? Order the children to pray when they are 7. Is it obligatory for them to pray when they're 7? No. But what is he teaching you here? Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you... What?
To be familiar with Salah and...
Why? That's your short, maybe. Why? If it's not obligatory when they're 7, why does he order the parents to tell them to do it? How many parents come to me when their children are 16, 17, 18? Wallahi, my child's not praying. He's not praying. You know what my first question is? فاهم لكن سؤالي ما هو من هذا الباب. سؤالي من شيء آخر. Do we start to order them to pray when it's obligatory for them to pray? No. So you have to what? Huh? Gradual. You have to give them time. You have to be gradual, and when you raise in general, but this is a milestone. The most important aspect of their life, you're supposed to condition them early on.
So step by step?
Step by step. Khutwa, khutwa. 3 years. Well, in this case, what's the age generally for puberty for boys? Huh?
18.
Okay.
18.
There's difference in the madhab. You'll find that some will say 18, but the standard you'll find is 15 years old. Because there's a hadith. And Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, when he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he wanted to go and fight, and he was 14, and the Prophet sallallahu prohibited him. But then when he turned 15, he allowed him to go. And there's another riwayah that he asked to see the hair in his prior part, and he saw that there was hair growing, and he allowed him to go and fight. And also other hadith that show that 15 years old is a standard age, but the most important aspect are the characteristics. What are the characteristics of puberty for males? The characteristic. If you see these things, then they're experiencing puberty. Facial hair, voice deepening.
Voice is different.
No. If there's hair that grows around akramakumullah, the private area, that's one of the strongest signs of puberty. Okay? And also if one has a dream and there's a wet dream, that's a sign of puberty as well. Okay? But for females, it is that time of the month. That's the time of puberty. We all know, inshallah. If we don't, inshallah. So here the Prophet ﷺ, he said, order them to pray when they are 7. So that's around how many years are they conditioned? 7, 8, 9, give or take, 7 to 10 years. Right? So if they don't make fajr at 8 years old, you don't whip them. Okay? Right? But you stress the importance of it. So at 7, 8 years old, when you're at home at Asr and they're sitting there watching television or playing video games, you say, Ta'al, come on, salli. And they won't want to pray. They won't want to. It may be boring to them. But you tell them, come and pray. I'll give you something. You reward them. Gradually. You know, when it comes to Isha time and they want something, did you pray? Did you pray Asr with me today? Okay, not today. Right? Gradually with them. You're gradual. Okay? And that's very important. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, and beat them for not offering it when they are 10. So here the Prophet ﷺ is saying, وَضْرِبُوهُمْ. The scholars have interpreted this to mean that there is a level of aggression. There's a level of aggression. Because based on the culture, one can literally find this a leeway to what? Be a boxer with their children. Yeah. No. Okay? We don't want to beat our children to the degree to where there's marks or there's, subhanAllah, even emotional damage to that degree. Right? But there is a level of aggression with the children that when they reach the age of what? 10 years old. And this again shows the level of being gradual. Being gradual with them. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, and do not let the boys, or do not, وَفَرِّقُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. And then it says, do not let them sleep in the same covers together. And that's the madaji is the place of sleep. So preferably if it's two boys, if it's a brother and sister as well, that they should sleep with different covers. And the madaji is the actual place of sleep, but there were no mattresses or anything of that nature. So it's preferable to put them in different places to where they sleep. So preferably different beds, but most importantly, something that is covered to where they have their own, basically, stationary unit of sleep, inshallah ta'ala. So these are three very important pillars when it comes to raising and taking care of the children. But this is very, very important where the Prophet ﷺ said in the beginning, تُمُرُ أَوْلَادُكُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ سَبْعِ سِنِينَ وَضْرِبُوهَا عَلَيْهَا بِعَشْرٍ, to show the importance of being gradual in raising your kids on Islam. To being gradual in raising your kids on Islam. And it can be a challenge for even the parents that maybe came back and started praying when their children became teens. This is going to be a challenge because when they start to teach their children were like, Baba, well, you didn't when you were. No? But it doesn't mean that the responsibility is off of the parent, inshallah ta'ala. So it's very important for us to remember to be gradual with our children in this regard. This hadith is azim jiddan. Even though some scholars mention in this hadith, the level of of the grade of the hadith authenticity, fihi ma fihi, that it may have a little of compromise in the strength of the hadith. But most of them still use this hadith to show the importance of being gradual when teaching the children the salah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those that are consistent in this action and that make sure that we are patient with ourselves and patient with our children in this regard. إِنَّهُ وَلِيُّ ذَلِكَ وَصَلَى اللَّهُ وَسَلَّمَ بَارَكَ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ أَجْمَعِينَ. Does anyone have any insight or any questions?
If it is not obligation to the boy when he is 7, why he said ordered him, not ask him?